say where the road goes, where the day flows, only time. And who can say if your love grows as your heart shows, only time.
Concerns Cuba's doctors have are that they are in need of some medical tools that are now being provided by the U.S. There are shortages of medicine, operating rooms, imaging equipment, and essential cancer treatment. There is also no technologically advanced areas of medicine. Some goals for doctors in the U.S. are to help the doctors in Cuba. Organizations like Disarm or Global Health Partners are focused on getting medical help over to Cuba because it is much needed. They help get doctors and medicine there. Cuba is also trying to fix the problems with health early and at its roots. People young and old are taught best practices with their health. The results are effective medically and it is economically effective. Some effects with Cuba's method are that Cuba spends roughly $300 per person per year on medical attention, and the U.S. bill is nearly 30 times as much per person. Although Cuba has a very efficient way of dealing with medical care, they still need medicines and surgical tools. Some possible solutions are to have organizations like Disarms or GHP provide Cuba with medical supplies, which can also improve relation with Cuba. Cuba and U.S. can also work together in long-range research and scientific partnership in biotechnology, vaccines, and tropical medicines, which can improve lives and advance knowledge. Another thing U.S. and Cuba can do is establish an exploratory committee charged with setting out a clear path for future health collaborations, which can also improve relations with Cuba.
Wow, I look like a little boy. The top concerns for aid workers dealing with Cuba and United States relations involve a problem that has been occurring since 2002. Guantanamo Bay is a United States-owned detention camp and Navy base. Here, Cubans are arrested based on suspicion and labeled as criminals. There is no form of justice used when taking these people. The concerning part is that the United States isn't willing to release this naval base at all to improve relations with Cuba. Some of the goals that aid workers have in dealing with this crisis are that Cuba's government wants the base's prison camp to be shut down completely, whereas President Obama wants to release the prisoners and shut down the prison while keeping the naval base running. The reason why it hasn't closed yet is because the White House and Congress have yet to agree on the issue. At Guantanamo Bay, there is a current hunger strike with over 100 people, due to the awful conditions that are similar to prison camps in North Korea. An ex-guard once reported to CNN that they were all told that the Cubans had helped with 9/11 or were caught fighting America with weapons in their hands. Concerning the hunger strike, many are violently beaten and force-fed through tubes shoved into their body. Again, these people are arrested on suspicion, with no trial. Solutions to this problem is that the United States needs to use the justice system we have in America to determine who is a legitimate criminal and not just arrest on suspicion. By also creating a set prison in agreement with Cuba, the effects will be positive. The relationships between Cuba and the U.S. will have a significantly better change.
The top concerns for businesses who are dealing with this is it is getting harder to find anyone who will argue that the purpose was worth it. It will require a lot more legislation and the elimination of tape. The U.S. has legislated time and are against doing business with a geographically proximate potential trading partner. The goals that business leaders have in dealing with this is pressure Cuba to end communism, keep Cuba on the terrorist list, and get fugitives back from Cuba. The expected or possible effects of this is for the U.S. to match or surpass China as Cuba's top export partner. It could require a little more than legislation and the elimination of red tape, as we've heard before. The U.S. and Cuba could start a trade agreement or relationship and benefit both countries and their economies. The lessons from other countries or historical time periods that could inform this issue is when relationships between nations fall, many more suffer. Many economies, businesses, and even everyday lives of citizens are affected by these relationships. The time that this became prominent is early 2000s or around 2002. Possible solutions to this problem is making agreements and contracts and keeping all the documents, and watching very closely to make sure that Cuba doesn't try to do anything extreme, nor the U.S. The possible effects is Cuba and the U.S. could turn around and ruin each other's economy. If other countries step in, they could become enemies with either the U.S. or Cuba.
Some of the top concerns among journalists are whether or not America will be safe for Cubans to travel to, whether Cuba will be safe for Americans to travel to now that trade's open, and how much Cuba's economy and America's economy will improve with new trade. Some of the goals that journalists have when dealing with this is they want to know how Cubans feel with the embargo being lifted. They want to know how this will affect both economies, and they want to know about the future of human rights discussions between the two countries. Some of the expected or possible effects are Raul Castro could do something drastic and betray the newly built friendship, or a possible effect could be a boost in both economies and a very tightened friendship. Some of the lessons from other countries would be the time of the Berlin Wall. Some of the possible solutions to this problem would be our current solution, which is lifting off the embargo and easing restrictions on travel and trade. This will provide a boost in Cuba's and the U.S. economy, but it also could result in Castro turning on the U.S. or Castro changing his mind about having any relations with the United States at all. A second solution would be to overthrow the communists, which would probably fail and start a war, and nuclear threats would reappear. Or maybe we could create a democratic Cuba.
Miss Anderson, our time together is growing short, and to celebrate, I thought I would do one last shower video for you. The political situation is one rarely talked about beyond the obvious leader, Raul Castro. The political side of things really started appearing in the news with the initiative to bring back the diplomatic ties with the U.S. If you didn't already know, in 1961, the United States severed these diplomatic ties with Cuba and began pursuing covert operations to overthrow the Castro regime. In 1961, the Bay of Pigs invasion, a botched CIA-backed attempt to topple the government, fueled Cuban mistrust and nationalism, leading to a secret agreement allowing the Soviets to build a missile base on the island. The United States discovered these plans in October 1962, setting off a 14-day standoff. U.S. ships imposed a naval quarantine around the island, and Kennedy demanded the destruction of these missile sites. The Cuban Missile Crisis ended with an agreement that the sites would be decimated. If the United States pledged not to invade Cuba. The United States also secretly agreed to remove nuclear missiles from Turkey. Better said, Cuba and the U.S. were in quite a tiffy for a minute there. But that's all alongside the immense amount of poverty and destruction that's already going on. It usually gets left in the dark around the Castro hype.
Earth, metal, water, wood. Earth, metal, water, wood, and fire.
The government continues to rely on arbitrary detention to harass and intimidate individuals who exercise their fundamental rights. The Cuban Commission of Human Rights and Natural Reclamation, an independent human rights group the government views as illegal, receives over 3,600 reports of arbitrary detentions from January through September 2013, compared to approximately 2,100 in 2010. Cuba is still a growing country and wants as much support as it can get, but it really doesn't want to mess with its strongholds, such as keeping foreign trade open, keeping tourists coming, and keeping imports of pharmaceuticals going so it can grow even more. Yeah.
Work it, make it, do it, makes us harder, better, faster, stronger.
That don't kill me, can only make me stronger. I need you to hurry up now, cause I can't wait much longer. I know I got to be right now, cause I can't get much longer. Man, I've been waiting all night now, that's how long I've been on ya.